for us to that's how Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has gathered us in this gathering that He gathers us in a greater gathering hereafter, inshallah. Bismillah. We begin with the book. This book is called Mabadi As-Surur. It's called in the beginning of the path, right, of the four servants of this creation to know the creator of all creation. Mm. Right. So Habib Abu Bakr, he begins his book with a Matlaq Qur'ani, with a Quranic spelling point, and Matlaq Qur'ani is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mm. As you can see the verse here, right, the one who hears it, or the meaning, those who hears the word, right, and they follow what is best of it. And they are those whom Allah has guided, right, and they are those who have deep understanding. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those, right, who understand, and this words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. Like every book of Habib Bakr begins with a Quranic starting point and a hadith starting point. So this book has a Quranic starting point. And so a Quranic starting point is basically like a pointing, like a pointing or a directive, right, as to the topic that is at hand. Mm. Right. So as for the prophetic starting point, right, it is when the Prophet Sallallahu points to matters. His points to matters of that it's going to be discussed in the book. Mm. So as for Mata Abawi, this will be starting points from the words of the companions of the righteous, scholars, that also point to the topic at hand. Um, mm. Right. So the topic that the Quran is pointing to, and the topic that the Hadith is pointing to, and the words of the scholars is pointing to, right? So you see, on the fourth page, right? You see the word Ba'ith, right? The Habib Abu Bakr wrote. I said Ba'ith is really what was the trigger, like what pushed Habib Abu Bakr to write this book? What was the cause of him writing this book? Right. So he mentioned that he had conducted a few dawras, like about the path to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and some students had come forward to him, and these people, they were really fervent and they really wanted to know, right, how do we go through this world, right? This is life, this modern world, with the way to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, right? So they wanted a book. They asked Habib to write a book, a small book, right, that is summarized, from the ways of the people of the past, right, to give them guidance in the world that we live in today. Right, especially in the time of communication devices, and technology, and also social media. And so he responded to the request of the students, right, and to benefit the people as a whole. And he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, to give him tawfiq, right, to this, and to bring together the secrets of the people of the past, or the scholars of the past, right, on this topic. Mm. So this dawrah that he was speaking about is the 40-day dawrah, right, in the summer, right, after they have finished their school, right, in the holidays. And so Habib, he used his time and he would do a summer dawrah. Mm. Right, so it's 40 days, right, whereby they learn the Quran, they learn fiqh, they learn the Sunnah, they learn the Sirah, they learn, the science of Islam in these 40 days. Right, so he actually aims specifically to people who are in government schools, like in colleges, in universities, in high school, to come during the summer break, right, to study the religion, right, in these 40 days. So young men, they will come, young women, they will come and they will study. Mm. Right, so some of those people who had shared, they had taken part, the participants of this dawras, they asked Habib Abu Bakr to speak to them, right, about to write a book, right, to guide them in their akhlaq, in their way, in their progress to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in this world of the media. Mm. Mm. Right, because we're in a zaman whereby there are many things that's in our zaman that is existent that used to never exist. For example, films and cartoons and dramas and comedy and video games and everything. So like they wanted a book, right, whereby we can apply these principles of character development, or spiritual development in a world that is afflicted by all of these other forms of technology. Mm. Right. So that's why they approached Habib Abu Bakr and they asked Habib Bakr, can he write something, to write a book, to teach them how to take the path of the pious, of the righteous, in a world that is afflicted by all these kinds of technology. Hmm. Right. So Habib Abu Bakr Alani, he responded to this request and he wrote this book that we are going through right now. Right. So Habib Abu Bakr Alani, he mentions at the beginning of the book, right? He spoke about this book is gifted to. Who is it gifted to? To the students, male and female, of knowledge, those who are desirous, right, to go on the way of thinking, to go into the science of this religion and to think deeply and to know about the adab of this religion. So the science of this religion will be Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. And adab here refers to tazkiyah, purification of the self, right? And so to know about the knowledge and to understand Islamic knowledge while they at the same time they are taking worldly knowledge. So knowledge in medicine or in engineering or in sciences, in geography, in sociology, right? So all of these things, right? So they want this. So a human being needs to be in the middle, right? They can't just be completely focused on one kind of knowledge, but they must have a full worldview, of all knowledges. And so he gives this book to those who nurtures people, male and female, who are nurturing and who are really, they're guarding over the tarbiyah, right, or the nurturing of Islam, the Islamic nurturing in children, especially in the newer generation, the next generation. Mm. And he gives his book, right, to the fathers and the mothers, right, of those who. Right. She said the Morabiats, right, those who are nurturing, right. So Habib gives this book. It's a gift from him to these people who are so concerned, right, about nurturing people. And he gives this book as well to the fathers and the mothers, right, who are concerned about this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they believe in it. And whereby Rasul said that every child is born on fitrah, and on a natural disposition, and that the father is the one who makes him Jew, Christian, or Magian, right? So Subhanallah. Um, mm, Karpeji, can you just record Karpeji? I can't. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing recording. You record it, Karpeji. Mm. Right. So the hadith here, right, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, um, now, right, so the teaching goes back to the father and the mother. As it's hadith whereby Rasulullah said that it's the father and the mother who makes him, Jew or Christian or Magian or fire worshiper. It shows that the child is completely, influenced by the parent. Mm, mm. Mm. Right. So how do we protect, children? So our children are affected very much, like by mentalities, by thinkings, outside of Islam. Mm. And so they're affected. So if but it does go back to the parents. So the parents as people who, they put in importance, right, on prayer, on the time for prayer, or if the parents on the other side, like they are negligent, right, on prayer and neglecting prayer. Hmm. No. Mm. Right. So the first tarbiyah that is safe, it is from the parents themselves to be firm and to be grounded, right, in their tarbiyah. Mm. Right. So the words of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and also on the words of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, whereby Rasulullah said that what a father can give to his child, right, of the best gifts they can give to his child is good character, right? The best thing, right, to give to your child is the hadith. Rasulullah said that the best gift that the father can give to his child, right, of all gifts is good character. This adab. So we begin our muqaddimah, inshallah. And so the muqaddimah, to pay attention to it, because in the muqaddimah, there is secrets, from Habib al Bukhari, and there is guidance. So you always go to the Muqaddimah. Muqaddimah is a forward. Mm, mm, mm. And so after you have studied with Tahawalat, we understand the secrets that Habib al Bukhari has placed in his forwards. And so you must go to the forwards. So you see, praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the guide, there is no guide besides him, the one who cares for us and guards over us, and there's no one who guards over us except him. He is the one who created the creation in all wisdom, for all wisdom. Right, subhanAllah. Right now we are asked, we ask the question, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create us? Right? What is the wisdom behind him creating us? Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, do you think that you were created for no reason and that you're not going to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? There are reasons. Um, and of the reasons of us being created is to command to goodness and to forbid what is evil, to strive in the way of good akhlaq, to strive in the way of purifying ourselves. Mm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed us in this position of being the caliph on the earth, the khilafah al earth, like caliph over the earth, to walk on this earth and to be custodians of the earth. Mm, mm. So here in this book, it will be made clear to us that what is this, custodiancy that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala wants us on this earth. Mm, mm. Right, so for us to hold on to the commandments of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and stay away from the prohibitions of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and that is how we are custodians on this earth. Mm. Right, so it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, knowledge, right? He is his pre-eternal knowledge. He knows everything. Like subhanahu wa ta'ala knows explain, okay? And Rasulullah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent to the creation like his prophets, right, who are mercies to this creation, right? To establish right the matter of vicegerency or presidency on this earth, on the face of this earth, right? And that Allah's rida, right? It is of the people on this earth is when mm, I mean when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us for all his prophets to point us right to righteousness, right, to a straight path. Mm, mm, mm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a human being, right, and has pointed a human being, on the Quran, and the Sunnah has created a human being on the Quran and Sunnah. Mm. Right, and then uh, right, and that what they have taken from the Quran and the Sunnah. Right? So it's for a human being to think, right, and to reflect, right? So Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has placed, in his creation, right, the sunnahs of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, right, the way of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala of righteousness and goodness, commanding to what is to point to what is righteous, right, and that Allah has gifted the human being the mind, right, the mind to think and to ponder, right, and Allah has given the human being choice for him to choose what is right and what is high. Mm. Mm. Right, for him to understand the best of life, which is worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and faithful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he said, and the one who is blissful is the one who understands the secrets right, of the laws of forbidding. When Allah has forbidden us from things, the secrets between Allah's commandments and Allah's forbidding on human beings, that is halal and is haram. Mm. Right? So for us, we need to understand, deeply, right, why Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has given us law and Sharia. What does Allah want from this? And it's a story for us to know, right? To know that there is secrets in everything. When we understand the verses of the Quran, there's a story about a shepherd whose name is Shayban. He's a servant of Sayyidina Abu Hanifa and Imam Shafi'i. So Imam Abu Hanifa used to praise, with Imam Shafi'i, praise Shayban. The secret that is in Shayban. Mm, MashaAllah. So Imam Abu Hanifa Shayban, right, if someone were to pray and they are doubtful how many rak'ahs they have prayed, what should they do? Uh, and then Shayban said, do you want me to answer you on your madhab or my madhab? And Imam Abu Hanifa said, on our madhab. And then Shayban said, well, your madhab says wherever you have certainty on, right? You continue from there. If you are certain you've done two, then you continue from two. So you've done three, you continue from three. Ya Allah. Mm. Subhanallah. Right. So MashaAllah. And then uh, Ya Allah. And so Shaiban said that as for my madhab, that the moment we lapse in prayer, the prayer is not there. Right? Isn't that they're always focused on the prayer. Right? And when you ask about zakat, what did it say about zakat? And Shaiban said, as in your madhab, every 40 sheep, you give out one sheep in zakat. As to my madhab, the servant, the slave, and all that he owns belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you see, right, subhanallah. Mm. Mm. Right, so there are people who understand the deeper meanings in his religion. So as the story of the Bedouin came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, "Oh Muhammad, tell me, give me an advice, and do not be too long about it." And the Rasulullah recited unto him Surah Zalzala to the verse whereby, and whoever does a small, an atmosphere of good, they will see it. Someone who does an atmosphere of evil, they will see it. And the Bedouin said, "Enough, I've understood." And the Rasulullah said that he has understood. If you understood that first, right, you do an atmosphere of good, will see it. Atmosphere of evil, you will see it. Then you have understood. Mm. Right. So he continues in his words, right? And he has stayed, right, in service to his creation, to his creator, in his secret states and his open states. So for a person to do is what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has commanded a person to do. Mm. Right. So in his secret states and his open states, right? And the Habib says here, right, and the wretched person is the one who follows his hawa, who follows his desires. Mm. Mm. The shaqi is someone who is wretched. Right, so he follows his hawa. It's from a hadith. The one who does whatever his shahawat wants, whatever his nafs wants. Mm. They want dunya. Right, they want things. They want to feed their nafs. They don't want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They want to work to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the hadith of Rasulullah, he said, when you see in the end of times that mm, if you see, right, greed being obeyed, and you see that desire is being followed, right, then keep to yourself and to those who are close to you. It's a hadith about end of times. Mm, mm. Subhanallah. Right, and then so we ask Allah for tawfiq, for tawfiq. And so who strives, right, to actualize this desire, right, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and tawfiq and his ability to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. And Allah says, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He is Allah has created a nafs and Allah has leveled it and Allah has inspired in us its evil and also its good, its taqwa. And so the surah in Surah Sham says, and he is successful, the one who has purified his nafs, and he has failed, the one who has abandoned his nafs. Mm, mm. Right, so him following his nafs, his nafs will bring him to destruction. Mm, right, so and between being inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or being neglected in your nafs, there is a commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And most people do not know about the secrets behind the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so khudlan is the opposite of tawfiq. Khuzlan of the tawfiq. So ilham is when Allah inspires you. Khuzlan is when you are, when you have neglected yourself and therefore you are neglected. Mm. Naam. Mm. So to go from a place of being neglected or your soul being neglected to a place of being inspired is the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that brings you there. Naam. Naam. So between ilham and khuzlan, between being inspired and being neglected, right? There is a barzakh. That means there is a space, right? And that is the commandment of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Mm, 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 mm. Right, so that gives the example of Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, right, of when he had such a great kingdom, but when truth came to him, when Allah's reminders came to him, he followed the reminders of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and was not distracted by his kingdom, as opposed to Fir'aun. Fir'aun, no matter how many reminders that Nabi Musa alayhi salam brought to Fir'aun, Fir'aun was completely distracted by his kingdom and his kingship. Right. So Allah has informed us, or in fact, that He has advised us right? To rush to good deeds. But as some say, in if you understand the words, and so to understand the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he said that, "I'malu فَكُلٌّ مُيَسَّرٌ لِمَا خُلِقَ لَهُ." I should act, and you will be made easy for you for what you are created for. Mm. And so he said, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq for ourselves and good deeds and a good holding on to the ways of purification to Allah of character that will bring us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah is one who guides and Allah is one who will assist us. So in the next chapter, mm, like what the scholars have said about about the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are many books that are written on the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like for those who are desirous of learning how do you get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. um, mm. And so the first book that is mentioned here is Bidatul Hidayah, at the beginning of guidance, right? There are methods of the version in this book. Mm. Right, that speak about it has goes from aqidah to fiqh, right, to prayer and to zakat, and you have أيها الولد by Imam Ghazali as well, also to advise the servant or the human being on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam al-Haddad's books, Adab Suluk Murid. Mm, mm, mm. Right, and so the one who wants to take the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need to learn his books. These are books that Habib is supporting us to. You need to learn all of his books. If you're serious about learning about getting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on his way. These are traditional books. Mm. Nah. Right. So, and so it is important for us, in fact, compulsion us to repeat these books, and to have it firmly established in ourselves. Mm, mm, And so, which is why one of the secrets, of this summer dauras coming up also for us, summer dauras, right, is that they learn the entire books in a short period of time. Right. So they take the books of the Righteous of the past, right, and they teach it in 40 days, right? So mashallah, especially this day and time, this zaman where people can't commit to a class all year round. So they give 40 days and they focus, and they learn book after book after book and they apply the rest of the year. Mm, mm, Right. So it's not for a human being to take these books and then not apply it. You take the books as a whole, and it's 40 days of dawrah, right, and then you apply it. As he said, it's about the Nabi Isa alayhi salam, Nabi Isa said, whoever studies and then who knows and he said and he teaches and he acts upon it, like he'll be called of the greatest of Allah's creation in the heavens and the earth. Mm. And so as far as we can, like we learn these books first and then we apply it as far as we can, so it becomes part of our life. Right. So right now, this is what makes this book different, is that this book it takes all the principles from all of these older traditional books, right, and it makes it applicable in our zaman that we're in right now, in our time that we're in right now. Right. So because all the principles of righteous mannerisms, of the way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been established by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mm. Right. So but we're coming to a zaman whereby, the zaman it can be difficult for us to apply. We might find it difficult to apply things that has been said by the scholars of the past. Mm. Right. We see. Mm, mm, mm. Right. So I mean, mashallah, there are good means and also bad means at the time. Like some of the good means, as I mentioned, right, is that we have PowerPoint presentations, you have ways and means to deliver information. Mm, mm. Right? And so to try and take these principles from the righteous people of the past, and connect it to our zaman of elements that destroy the religion. Mm, mm, right? And we're in the time of there is a war on mentalities, right? War on thoughts, right? So how do we get through this war on our thoughts, on our thinking, mindsets, a war on mindsets, and to come out with a pure and guided mindset of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he mentions some of the effects of it. Mm, mm. Termites. Mm. So tamam. Right. So Habib says that this Ghazwa Fikri. The Ghazwa Fikri is basically it is a war on mindsets, right? It is like termites, in the sense that it eats up wood from inside, and before you know it, the wood is so brittle it collapses. So this war on mindsets that is a war that's coming from the media. It destroys the human being on the inside, like how termites destroy the human being, destroy a piece of wood from the inside. It makes it brittle and it collapses. Mm. Mm. So we see how the generations of human beings, generation after generation, they're affected by what they see in the media, what they see in films, what they see in cartoons. And it builds a mindset inside of them that will destroy the religion eventually. Mm. Mm. And that proper Islamic nurturing has been replaced, right, by the media, by all these screens, all these TVs. Mm. It has been replaced. And so now we're seeing the result of it. Mm. See how the TV has replaced tarbiyah. So instead of parents nurturing their own children, now all of these, media, they are the ones who have taken the place of the one who's nurturing or in fact destroying children. Mm, mm, mm. And we didn't find all of these things like in the zaman, of our parents or grandparents. And you see, in our zaman, more and more divorces going on, more and more broken families. And in the past, this was not the case. Mm, mm. Right? Because people have gone far from the vision, far from the way of the righteous, far from the way of good character and mannerisms, like far, like they've gone far away, right, from the teachings of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Quran, it contains all of adab, all of good character. The Quran, the Sunnah of Rasulullah contains all of good behavior. It contains all that is good for the human being. Mm. The Sirah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as well, right? Right. So we speak about the Prophet Sallallahu, we should be speaking about him every single day for our children. Where is the adab? Where is the etiquette? Right, to be implemented in our houses, in our families. But what we're seeing, of anger and angst and bad character, it is the result of being too exposed to all the screens. Mm. Right, so subhanallah. Right, so people they underestimate, right, the effects, right, of all of these forms of technology, right, on the characteristics or characterisms of the mannerisms of the human beings. Now, mm, uh, okay, so now he's going to the fiqh suluk, right? She's going into the next one, right? So something that we need to study very very carefully. She mentioned is the history of our enemy, and who is our enemy? Shaitan, right? Shaitan, right? To actually study this real animosity, right? This true animosity that has been sworn from the beginning of the creation of human beings. Shaitan swore his animosity against human beings from Nabi Adam alayhi salam, all the way down. So just for us to understand clearly that that he is at war with us, Shaitan. He is at war with us from the beginning of human beings, and he's still at war with us till the day of judgment. Mm, right. So when you look at this advertising, you look at this media, like is it building up? Is it building us up as human beings or destroying us as human beings? Mm. What culture is it? What culture is it spreading? Right, and even in economy, right, with the spread of riba wherever you go, and the voice of shaitan has been raised in our zaman. And through all these ways of media, the voice of shaitan is now loud and clear and raised and listened to, in the zaman that we are in. Mm. It calls people to argumentation. It calls people to breaking off ties with each other. It calls people into rude and ugly speech. It calls people into the worst of behaviors. Mm. Yeah, and Allah informs us that Shaitan, he's actually very weak, and the plot of Shaitan is very weak. Like he's thrown away from you the moment you seek Allah's protection from him, and he's made to run away from you. Khannas, like you run away. Hmm. And this is what Rasulullah has taught us, to seek protection from Shaitan and not to listen to him. Mm, mm. Right. So in this book, we aim to bring people back to the correct understanding, to the correct teachings, the correct nurturing, the correct culture that has come that we can connect us to the Sharia that is correct to, to our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in his guidance. Um, so Habib Abu Bakr, he begins with the fiqh suluk, right? Where fiqh suluk. So the word fiqh, it means to understand. Mm. Suluk, it means a path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing good deeds. So how do we go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? By good deeds. By following the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on a path that is established by scholars who have a chain of transmission back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you understand that suluk, it is a path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? To traverse to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you ask the question, how do I mm, right? Right. So how do I get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the first thing that is mentioned here in this definition, good deeds. Right, good deeds. And secondly, that is mentioned, follow the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his akhlaq, his ways of speech, his ways of dealing with people. Mm, mm. Right, and to hold on to shuyukh, to hold on to scholars, people who have knowledge and character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mm. And so when I want to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are three things. Good deeds. First thing is good deeds. And good deeds is not just limited to prayers and fasting, but of the greatest of good deeds is good behavior, good character. Right. So Rasulullah SAW has informed us, has taught us about ibadah that is, physical acts of worship, and ibadah that has to do with dealing with other people. Mm. Right. So when you do good deeds, right, and you follow the way of Rasulullah SAW, right, that's number two, follow the way of Rasulullah SAW in his mannerisms. And number three, to have a teacher, right, to have a sheikh or a teacher, right, somebody who can bring you on the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, so as for the understanding of this, right, he means right to have a beautiful and a perfect following, right, of the texts of the Sharia specifically, right, and of directives and nurturing from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, which is through knowledge and action. Mm, right. Mm. And so we say Nas Shara'i, we say the texts from the Sharia, we refer to the Quran. And we say Nas Nabawi, as we say, prophetic text, we refer to the Hadith. Right. So for us, when we come on this path, the first thing to do is that we need to learn what is being said in the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and to go on the path to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in this. Now, so many books, so many verses in the Quran, right, tell us, to point us to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, whereby Allah says, and there be people who call to goodness, commanding to goodness and forbidding what is evil. Mm. Right. So I take the words of the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and all of these words, it points me, it directs me. Mm. It directs me, on the path to know what deeds are righteous and what are not righteous. Mm. And so I need to learn it, to read it, to study it at the stands, at the hands of teachers, and then to act upon it. Mm. Right. Tamam. Right. And so the importance of taking the path of purification, right? When you want to nurture yourself and your children and those who are around you. Mm, mm, okay. Right, and so when we speak about Tarbiyah Islamiyah, when we speak about Islamic nurturing of the individual, right? We go to the verse of the Quran where Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, and let there be from you a people who call to goodness. Mm. Right? So the meaning of Islamic nurturing has many meanings. There is a very wide word, many meanings. Um, and of the meaning of akhlaq. Right? First and foremost, the meaning is the meaning of akhlaq. Right? To call people onto character, good character. Um, right? Then, right? So then, no. There's a hadith from Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Mm, Right, so this verse here where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in Surah Al Imran, right, that you are the best of creation. I brought forth for mankind, you command to what is good and you forbid from what is evil. Right? This ummah or this nation is only the best nation if we call to goodness and you forbid what is wrong. Also, what happens if you stop doing that? Mm, mm. Ya Allah. And so Rasulullah SAW said in a hadith that you must always call to goodness and forbid what is evil. And if you do not do so, then it could be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends upon you a punishment from Himself and you will dua to Him and He will not answer you. Mm. So a lot of the calamities that afflict us in our lives, it is because we have failed in calling to goodness and forbidding what is wrong. Mm. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? And so to command to what is goodness, right, is to point people out, to point this entire generation of or generations of people, of human beings, generation after generation, right, to all that is recommended to, right, not as wajib but sunnahs as well, by the Sharia that is full of wisdom, by the one who has laid out the Sharia, the one full of wisdom, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mm of his words and his actions and his approvals, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his character standpoints, right? Standpoints of his good character that points us right to the Sharia. So of the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of the actions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mm, right. So for example, today, when we see arguments between our children and our neighbors, is there any behavior or character that's from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That when he saw people arguing, what did he do? uh, right, so when we see these things happening, right, so how do you respond when you see arguments happening in front of you, or when you are engaged in an argument? How do you respond? What is the prophetic standpoint? What is the prophetic method, his way, right? So that's why it is necessary, Mm. That we take standpoints to guide people, ourselves and people around us, right, to the correct way of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Mm. Right? And so as how we are also told to forbid what is wrong. Mm. And how do we warn, right, the believing generation of children, right, of the children of the believers? How do we warn them, right, against what the Sharia has made haram on us, has made forbidden on us, right, and for them to not to never go against it. Mm. Right, so that we need to actually lay out principles and ways, or insight in their hearts, right? There will be blocks on them, right, from ever wanting to go near what is haram. Mm. Mm. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mm. Right. So, like, for example, foul speech. Rasulullah said that the believer, he's not somebody who curses and insults. He's not a believer. He is not someone who curses and insults. Right. So how do we teach our children and ourselves? Right? How do we put a block on this of using terrible words against each other? Mm. Right. Subhanallah. Right, so all these methods they're going to go through, inshallah, they will bring someone higher and higher, like in that, in the stages of perfection of ihsan. Mm, mm. So if a child was nurtured, if a good nurturing, mm, so if a child was really, strongly and properly nurtured, in this way, can you let me out of the interpretation? Kak Reggie, let me out of the interpretation. Now, struggling, you're crooked, in a sense, you're not perfect. I mean, you're not perfect. Like, still take the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best that you can give. And we know that we're all weak people, we're all weak. And take the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best you can give. The third one is to look into the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right? And so to see, of his prophetic stances of how he, would of how he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, like he would behave in certain situations, on how he would treat people, to know his prophetic stances, I know his sirah well, right? And then the fourth one is to take a sheikh, right? To take a sheikh, a teacher, right, who can, guide you, urge you, right, on the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you don't give up, right? And then the fifth one, right, I forgot the fifth one. اللي بعدها الشيخ يعني الأخير الخامس naturalist position, right, on the path of the Sharia. So needs to train yourself, right, to always act on the Sharia, right, in that way, right, this position. On the Sharia. تمام. السؤال الثاني, so basically said that with regards to the book, right, we're going to go into it next chapter. We'll go into the four enemies of the human being, right? And when you understand the enemies of the human being, you should understand the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's coming, it's coming. We're going to go into, the reality of the human being. But she does go into, right now for us, to actually look and ponder upon commanding to goodness and forbidding evil, and how much of it do we actually do, right, around us, right? So, for example, you come into a gathering, you see some people backbiting. Like, do we just keep silent and stay by the side, or do we do something about it? Do we try and advise people? Do we try and say something nicely, gently? See someone who's not dressed properly, right? You try to say something gently to them, right? Nice to them. If you see people arguing, neighbors fighting, family members breaking off bonds, ties, like, do we try to do something? You see someone, she even mentioned about people, who don't treat animals well. Like, all of these are all, things are happening around us, right? Whether it's this zaman or the previous zaman, these things are happening around us, right? So this is really at the, at the core of it all, that we have abandoned commanding to what is good and forbidding what is evil. Right? So inshallah, work on that. We work on that. But inshallah, as we go on in the course, right, we will be speaking more about the laws of Islam, inshallah. She said that first and foremost, she first reminded me about a book that I studied with her in Singapore a few years ago. And she told me to translate some parts of the book. This book is basically on the nurturing of children in this zaman, by Habib Abu Qaladani. And so I did do this book with Sazad whenever she was in Singapore years ago. And she just told me to translate some parts of it. So inshallah, I'll do it. Secondly, she said that, so the first thing that you need to do as mothers, as parents, and this is something that's a calamity of our zaman, that our children have no timetabling. Right? They have no timetabling. Right? They have a day that is just, there is no structure to their day. Right? So we need to structure the day of our children and put them on a timetable. Right? What time is for what time is for what. Right? So early in the morning, Fajr, the zikr being done, the awrat being done, right? And so on and so forth. Right? And then the studies. And so every time has it, everything has time for it. Right? Everything is time for Salah did mention that, we are in a zaman whereby it's very hard, right, to actually, prevent them from this technology completely. If you don't get it from you, they get it from somebody else. right? They'll get it from their cousins, from their friends, from their school, right? So if it's not from you, it's from somebody else. Somebody will show it to them. At the most, even they'll find it there, right? So it is impossible for us, right? In fact, in the Zaman, to completely cut this off from them, right? So what we need to do, so first and foremost, arrange time, structure time for them, timetabling is very important. So time for this, time for that, times for this and for that. Okay, so then if right now this child is completely addicted, right, to these computer games, right, to this social media entertainment, right, you need to put a time for it. Right, put a time for it, but in this time whereby they are given to use these things, right, you sit with them, right? It has to be your free time as well, right? So it's your time to sit with them and do it together, right? And in doing it together, what Cesar is saying is that you will guide them on this, right? So you sit with them. If they're going to scroll Instagram, you're going to sit with them. If they're going to play some games, you're going to sit with them, right? If they're going to watch some cartoons, you're going to sit with them, like, and you're going to point to them, what is right, what is wrong. You're going to make them understand, like, the evil that's in these things, so that when they are not in your radar and they're out there and they're watching stuff with their friends, with their cousins that you might not even know about this, at least they have it in themselves, the system of knowing what is right and what is wrong. Right, so you're going to build in them a form of taqwa, right? Taqwa in themselves. They know what's right and what's wrong. They're able to differentiate the right from the wrong. All right, because by you sitting there, every time they use the devices, you need to be present with them. They are not allowed to use devices without you present, right? So that is, so when they do find ways to sneak around it, and if they do, but if they do and they sneak about it, at least it has been instilled in them to be able to see the harm in it and the haram in it. Right, as you was mentioning, that all these games, they are like women who are dressed promiscuously, right? There are people who are drinking alcohol, killing games, right? Social media of people, saying stuff that is wrong, vulgarities, even cartoons that are one-eyed, angelic and everything. Right? You need to be whenever they are holding on to these devices, it is on parents to be present. You must be present. You cannot just allow them to use the devices without you there. To do she gave. And she said that Habib actually gave a full advice in the book that I said you've heard some years ago. So inshallah, I'll get the book and I will translate the section. This is a section on advice with regards to the media. Inshallah, barakallahu fikum. Ustazah, inshallah.